Hello and welcome. You're watching News Central Television. I am Judith, the TB. It's time for News Central now, and here are the top stories of this hour. Blast rocks Trans-Niger pipeline in Bodo, Rivers State. Nigerian Air Force strikes destroy Boko Haram Hideouts in Borno. And South Sudan carries out airstrikes against rebels. Details shortly. And we begin the news in Rivers State, where an explosion has rocked the Trans-Niger pipeline in Bodo and Oguni community in Rivers State. Reports say the resulting fire has since been contained. Meanwhile, local residents allege that suspected saboteurs dug around the pipeline and set it ablaze under the cover of darkness. This incident comes amid ongoing discussions about the resumption of oil exploration in Ogoni land, a move recently approved by the presidency. However, it remains unclear whether the explosion is linked to threats issued by some Niger Delta militant groups over the political crisis in Rivers State. Earlier, News Central's correspondent in Port Harcourt, Viola Festus, visited the scene of the blast and gave us an update. Take a look.
Borno State, and the pipeline behind me was on fire last night. Locals are suspecting sabotage. They said while asleep they saw fire flaming up from this facility, and now this pipeline leads to Borno Terminal, of course, for onward export for refining and production. What we do not know is if this is connected to the earlier threat of blowing up the pipeline by some groups, but the locals are, however, saying they are suspecting that it might be connected to the fight for whom takes over the exploration of this pipeline. You would also recall that in Ogoni land there has been no oil exploration for the past 30 years, and recently discussions just resumed to resume oil exploration in Ogoni land. So all of these are situations that are being suspected to have been connected to this fire outbreak at this facility. We are having a faculty and some of the people are trying to set things straight right now. But what we do know is that NNPC have come to barricade the area, and the person in charge of surveillance on ground told us earlier that when the fire started, NNPC were alerted and they had to pump water from their facility to put out the fire right here. We're having a little bit of...
Joining us now for more on this is Gloria Harry. She's a public affairs commentator and she joins us live from Port Harcourt. Ms. Harry, many thanks for joining us. We appreciate you for doing this with us. Let's just get right into it, shall we? Reports are still emerging and perhaps it's some time until we get a clear picture of events. But you are a local. What do you know so far?
Thanks for having me. We woke up this morning and, like she said, we heard about the explosion. And the first thing that came to our mind was, is it sabotage or is it those threats that those groups made, to blow up pipelines? But we also have to sit back and critically look at it, because some time ago in Bukuma community, if you recall, there was a similar explosion and that was caused by nature. So we're hoping that this same Trans-Niger pipeline is also as a result of wear and tear and not sabotage. That's what we're also hoping for. Though the Rivers State Police Command, they've come up with a statement to say that they've arrested 2 persons who they are interrogating to actually have more information about what really happened. So that's about it. But there's a little apprehension. People are just being careful.
Right. I mean, there were also threats earlier about violence in Rivers State in light of the political crisis. Now, we don't know who did this. There have been talks about it being saboteurs. But do you think this blast is connected with the ongoing crisis in Rivers State?
That's why I made reference to what happened earlier in the year, I think January or December. And that's why I'm being careful, because we don't want to start something and give flesh to maybe something that is not. So everybody is hoping that it's not what we think it is, because the political tension in Rivers State is quite high, and every act of violence could be attributed to or linked to it, but we don't want to go that route. So we're hoping that with the investigation, they will let us know if it was
We seem to be having network issues there with the connectivity. We'll try to continue the discussion later. Gloria Harry, the public commentator, joining us all the way from Port Harcourt in light of the pipeline blast in Bodo community. In the meantime, the political tension in Rivers State has continued to gain momentum on a weekly basis. And the latest development, the State House of Assembly is accusing Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his deputy Ngozi Odu of gross misconduct. News Central's correspondent Biola Festus was at the Monday plenary and brought us this. Take a look.
Despite adjourning indefinitely at its last plenary, today's sitting is an emergency one. A letter had been written to the Speaker of the House and signed by all 26 lawmakers, notifying him of alleged gross misconduct by Governor Siminalayi Fubara and his deputy, Ngozi Odu. The Speaker, Honorable Martin Amewule, acknowledged receipts of their letter.
On Friday, the 14th day of March 2025, I received a notice of allegations of gross misconduct brought pursuant to Section 188 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended 1999. Distinguished colleagues, it is with reference to acts of gross misconduct in the performance of the functions of the office of the governor by His Excellency Sir Siminalayi Fubara.
The disconnect between the Rivers State House of Assembly and Governor Fubara has been on for over a year. On the basis of that, the House voted that the Secretary to the State Government be investigated by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, for allegedly expending the state's funds without approvals.
Mr. Speaker, this morning I rise to move motion to request the Economic and Financial Crime Commission to investigate the Secretary to Rivers State Government, SSG. Mr. Speaker, respected colleagues, whereas Section 128 of the Constitution empowers this House to direct or cause to be directed an inquiry or investigation into any matter or thing with respect to which this House has the powers to make laws on. Mr. Speaker, I concern that the office of the Secretary to Rivers State Government has been spending taxpayers' money, funds without budgetary approval from 2024 date, Mr. Speaker.
The Speaker recalled that past messages from the House were stalled during transmission and proposed that letters be broadcast through the media instead.
Mr. Speaker, I would want to move a motion that would grant leave to the clerk so that he can publish these letters on print media, so that we can publish all the letters of gross misconduct that is meted on the governor and the deputy governor.
This House has therefore resolved that the clerk will publish in at least 3 national dailies the notice of allegations of gross misconduct brought pursuant to Section 188 of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended 1999 in reference to acts of gross misconduct in the performance of the functions of the office of the governor by His Excellency Sir Siminalayi Fubara, GSSRS, Governor of Rivers State, the functions of the office of the Deputy Governor by Her Excellency Professor Ngozi Odu, DSSRS, Deputy Governor of Rivers State.
1899 Nigerian Constitution has been activated, and the people of Rivers State, and indeed Nigerians, are watching to see how the investigations unfold and what happens thereafter. In Rivers, for News Central, Biola Festus.
Meanwhile, the executive arm of the Rivers State government is also accusing the House of Assembly of obstructing Governor Siminalayi Fubara from fully implementing the Supreme Court judgment. According to the Commissioner for Information, Joseph Johnson, who addressed the media on behalf of the state government, Governor Fubara has remained resolute in his commitment to enforce the Apex Court's verdict, but the Assembly has been frustrating the governor's efforts.
The members of the Right Honorable Martin Amehule-led Rivers State House of Assembly have by their own actions refused to allow the Governor of Rivers State, His Excellency Sir Dr. Siminalayi Fubara, GSS ROS, to fully implement the judgment of the Supreme Court on the long-drawn political and legal battle that has lingered since after the ill-fated attempt to impeach him on October 30, 2023. Right from when this unjustified onslaught against Governor Fubara started, the gentleman has never left anyone in doubt about his unwavering commitment to peace and resolute determination to put Rivers people first over and above personal and or sectional interests. The lawmakers suddenly have shown too much evidence of the fact that their target is to stall development of the state and punish the people of the state for the unprecedented solidarity and support he's enjoying in spite of the orchestrated political upheavals. What they have tried to do to remedy the unreasonable decision of adjourning Senate is to accuse the governor of not doing enough to implement the Supreme Court judgments.
Still on River State crisis and the pipeline blast at Bodo. Earlier we're speaking to Gloria Harry, and she joins us back on public affairs commentator all the way from Port Harcourt, River State. Ms. Harry, we lost you there all thanks to the gremlins and the connectivity, but let's just continue. I want to ask you about solution, right? Because at the end of the day, this is a democracy and grassroots governance is important. What would you consider the solution is to what is going on, you know, in River State politically, and now the blast, the pipeline blast? Talk to us from the federal government to the local communities. What is the way out? Or rather, from the state government to the local communities?
The way out is negotiation, understanding, and peace. That's the way out. Because, like, for March, civil servants will not be paid, from what I gathered. And who is worst hit by all this political fight is the masses. The masses are those who are at the point of suffering and receiving whatever it is that the dispute is. Now, when you talk about the face-off between Siminalayi Fubara and his benefactor, I think both of them should realize that it's not about who is right and who is wrong. But at this point where we are, there are people who are, how will I put it, benefiting from this crisis. So they don't want this crisis to stop. And both of them should realize that when they started this their political relationship, most of us were not there. And whatever led to what has happened, it's about this is what I want, this is what you want. So I think the president should step in at this point, because if he does not step in, some unscrupulous elements could just catch in on it and cause disaster. Like we're saying, this pipeline explosion, we don't know if it's vandals that have done it or who has done what, but you know, people are just catching in, people are trying to benefit as much as they can from what is happening. And it's not in the interest of the state, it's not in the interest of the country, because you recall that we're an oil-producing country, and whatever affects the oil pipelines, whatever affects oil exploration and all that will affect the income of the nation. So it will not be the issue about River State, but to be a national issue. So before a law breaks, as a peace breaks in River State, I think parties should remember that there are innocent people who might just be caught in the crossfire. And President Buhari should call them again, both parties. Yes, he had intervened before now, and they say the governor did not implement most of the things they agreed on. So he should call them once again. And this time the whole world is watching. Tell the governor this is what you want him to do.
Right. And
if he fails to do it, maybe with some leaders from the state, then you can hold him responsible for whatever happens.
Right.
And the minister too should give peace a chance. We don't need this at this point. And it's unfortunate that whenever we have a minister at the federal level and we have a governor, we don't benefit from both ends. It's either you're with the minister or you're with the governor.
Right. I'm glad you bring the federal level to this in terms of, a past governor of the state being a minister at the federal level, and somewhat the state seems to be suffering. At the heart of this whole issue should be the people at the end of the day. I don't think intermediators should come into this. If you are a public servant, what should be at the core of everything is the will and the goodwill of the people. But I must say thank you, Ms. Harry, for taking out the time to join us. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
In the meantime, human rights lawyers and political activists are demanding an unreserved apology from FCT Minister Nyesom Wike over comments deemed derogatory to the Ijaw nation. The calls follows Wike's recent remarks where he allegedly referred to the Ijaw people as a minority and links them to criminal activities, a statement that has sparked criticism over ethnic representation and national unity. During a press conference in Abuja, a prominent legal and civil rights advocates, including Deji Adenuju, Maxwell Okpara, and Marshall Abubakar, condemned Wike's remarks, urging him to retract his statements to prevent further ethnic tension. They highlighted the Ijaw people's significant contributions to Nigeria's development, rejecting any suggestion that they are a marginalized minority.
It's important to note that even in River State, where the Honorable Minister comes from, the Ijaw nation occupies about 12 local governments in the state, 12 local governments. You can do your fight with Governor Fubara without ridiculing the Ijaw people. Just like if anybody wants to do their fight with a Yoruba man, or a Hausa man, or a Fulani man, you don't need to bring the issue of their ethnic nationality into the struggle.
Mr. President, please, we are calling on you to come in. First of all, asking to apologize. And if the issue, the president failed to address the issue now, it may lead to something else. When you are addressing the press, you choose your words. You are not only a governor, you are a lawyer. You are not only a lawyer, you are a member of a body of benchers. If you are going to do your politics, you can do your politics without necessarily attacking the nation.
What he owes us at this stage is not a denial of what he has said on tape. What he owes the Ijaw nation is a categorical apology for his errors he has made. To err is human, to forgive is divine. He's not above mistake. All of us are not above mistakes, but the moment you make a mistake as a man, owe up to it.
You're watching news now on News Central Television. Let's go on our very first break. When we return, FCT Minister Nyesom Wike revokes PDP National Secretariat land over non-payment of ground rent. And you won't believe, as a member of the PDP, we have the details just after the break. Join us again. The Senior Special Assistant to President Tinubu on Media and Publicity, Tomitokpe Ajayi, has dismissed claims that he called for the death penalty against National Youth Service Corps member who recently violated the scheme's bylaws. In a statement, Ajayi clarified that his earlier remarks on Facebook were misinterpreted, stressing that the maximum penalty under NYSC regulations is expulsion, not physical harm. He maintained that blatant disregard for NYSC bylaws and established protocols should attract appropriate disciplinary measures, particularly in the case of corps members in question. Ajayi's clarification follows a widespread backlash online, with many accusing him of advocating extreme punishment. Joining me live in the studio is Elvis Akpobi, Executive Director of the Not Too Young to Lead initiative, to give us a bit of insight on what's been going on. Elvis, you've been following the matter, right? And you're also a champion of rights of young people. What's your take in all of this?
My take is, I'm glad to be alive at a time like this. For a president who was once an activist, for a president who metamorphosed to get to where he is because his voice was not muted, was vocal as a young person. I'm sure he didn't send that aide to do whatever statement he made. I think it's just sustained mediocrity, which is common among our young people who get platforms to be on the table or the corridor of power, forgetting that power is transit, and we're first Nigerians, we're first young people before whatever privilege we've been given to be on the table where critical decisions are being made. So for me, I want to believe that the aide to the president said he said he was misconstrued, but the fact is the core member should be commended. For a country where people's voices are muted, she expressed how she felt. I watched the video. She talked about the president. She described the president as being terrible. I've seen cases where the president used such words more than that while he was a young person, speaking for the voices, for the masses of other persons while he was much younger. The president was among those persons that came out to stage a walk against bad governance during the Goodluck Ebele Jonathan's time. I didn't think anybody was, blackmailed, anybody was threatened, so I don't see any reasons why the young lady should be put under pressure. That's why we have democracy.
Where do you see this matter going? Because the young lady, Rita Uche, she was summoned to the local government office to meet with the LGI, which is the local government inspector, and she was escorted there with an activist, with a team of activists and lawyers. And when she got there on Monday yesterday, the officials who were supposed to be there for the panel hearing were not, they were all absent. Do you think this would die a natural death?
For me, it shouldn't die a natural death. Nigeria is at a stage where it's a time of calling out. If during electioneering, during campaign, you promise us something and you're not doing it, it's time to call out. The time the president was an activist, there were no social media. You should remember that we have the tool of our time, which is the social media, the internet and all that. And young people are making use of it to express how they feel. Despite I don't subscribe to people, not respecting positions of authority. But the fact is, if you promised us good governance, you should, give us good governance. And it's not an autocratic setting where.
You said something about respect, so I'm going to ask you, right? Where do we blur the lines between, dissent, which is talking and just being criticism of power, just critique really, and holding power accountable, speaking truth to power and respect of the office? Where do we draw the line? Because what she said in those videos, like you said, was just her expressing her displeasure with the economic situation and calling out the presidency for not doing his job as he promised to. But then this has now sort of blurred to a point of disrespecting the office. So where do we? For
me, I don't see it as disrespecting the office of the president. We contracted governance with the president with our vote. Without us, there will be no president. And the presidency should remember that. There's a generation of young people they need to negotiate with. There's a generation of young people that have the tool of our time, the smartphone. If they can't see you in person, they will express how they feel in person. So the one thing I notice with power is power attracts mediocrity and hypocrisy, mostly among a critical mass of people that are being appointed. They do everything to protect their office, and that's what you see with the aid of the president.
Do you think that also might be overzealous? Because I noticed that almost all of his cabinet members or anyone who is in the office who has been appointed, they are very zealous to come out and champion
Yes, but there are still a handful that are in sync with young people. The present Minister for Youth Development is someone that listens. He feels the pulse of the street. And oftentimes I've been privileged to meet with him and I tell him, this is how people are feeling. And you tell him, don't worry, so what we'll do about it. That statement alone is an encouragement to me. So when we see cases where people are being, privileged to be on the table where decisions are being made, they come out to, emit rays of mediocrity. It's so disheartening. It shuts doors for other young people. That's why you see comments on Facebook when people will be like, you are one of them. For me, when I'm privileged to be on the table, I speak the truth diplomatically. Boss, this is what the people are saying. Because if it's the people that kept you there, if the people say no tomorrow, in the same climb, you will be out of that office. So for me, the youth corps should be complimented, should be commended for amplifying our voices.
Many would say that diplomacy is no more the answer, right? And let me finish here in saying that, given the economic situation that we find in this country, the youth have, said repeatedly that it's harder for them to survive. It's harder to meet those markers that society expects of you because of how society is. And just last year, August last year, during the NSAS, and I think on day 5, and bad governance protests, when the presidency gave his speech, he said there's going to be a 30-day National Youth Confab. Is that going to pacify the voices of the youth? Do you think that the National Youth Confab will now come to the fore in terms of conversation and planning at the national level? And would that pacify the youth given the economic situation that they've been crying on social media?
I think it should, because for me, to dialogue, you need to engage people.
But they've said they don't want to dialogue anymore.
National Youth Confab, it's a pathway to dialogue if they don't politicize it. If they don't pick people that will speak to what they want, but speak for the masses. I'm watching they just inaugurated the planning committee. I'm watching closely the selection process when I think CSOs are involved, and that's why I come in. When they select people that will speak on that, meaning it's a virtual posturing, and I will not subscribe to that. I believe the Minister for Youth, whom I've been engaging, knows how it should be done, and I trust that I will do the right thing. Yeah. For youth corps, I've been a youth corps. I've been a corps member in the 15, 14 years ago. I know how it feels. And for a young lady, for her to be able to express herself, she shows the part of dignity. She doesn't want to subscribe to negativity to take off her needs. And there are some places too. Back in Delta State, we have some corps members are having it very well in my state, and we have some foundations. There's this Ali Ngulde Foundation who built a lodge for corps members, provide money for them and all that. But other corps are not privileged to have such.
They still want the government to do that.
Yes.
I mean, we're out of time, really, because we're pressed for time, but I must say thank you so much for coming on. Let's see how this plays out in the coming days. Well, I predict that the National Youth Confab conversation will come back to the fore, and it might just happen. Would it be enough to pacify the voices? Only time will tell. Will it, foster dialogue? Because the youth have said they don't want it, only time will tell. But Elvis, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Elvis Apobi is Director for Not Too Young to Lead Initiative. Now let's move away from the youth and now to tax reform. The tax reform bill submitted to the National Assembly by President Bola Tinubu on 3rd of October 2024 have passed third reading in the House of Representatives. The bill which include the Nigeria tax bill, the tax administration bill, the joint reform, the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Bill, and the Nigeria Revenue Service Bill were approved after their adoption by the Committee of the Whole on the 13th of March. Now, despite reports of Nigeria's inflation rate slowing, the reality on the ground tells a different story. Consumers continue to face soaring prices for essentials like food, fuel, and transportation. The disconnect raises critical questions about whether the economic slowdown is meaningful for ordinary Nigerians or if structural issues from supply chain disruptions to currency devaluation are keeping costs high. The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, has revoked the land title of the People's Democratic Party's National Secretariat in Abuja. The minister issued the revocation notice in a letter dated 13th March 2025, and it was signed by the Director of Land Administration, Chijioke Onwankweze. According to the letter, the opposition party has failed to pay its annual ground rent on the property for 20 years from 1st January 2006 to 1st January 2025, despite repeated notices in national newspapers and electronic media, urging it to settle all outstanding bills. The minister added that the FCT administration will immediately take possession of the PDP secretariat until all bail is settled. It's one move by which the minister may have finally drawn a line in the sand with his party, the opposition People's Democratic Party, the PDP. The Nigerian Air Force has launched precision airstrikes on Boko Haram hideouts in Chikide and Degbewa, Borno State, dealing a significant blow to the terrorist group. Acting on credible intelligence, the NAF, that's the Nigerian Air Force, targeted key insurgent enclaves in the Mandara Mountains, where notorious terrorist leader Ali Ngulde and his fighters were reportedly meeting. Surveillance had earlier confirmed the presence of a fortified command hub equipped with solar-powered installations, prompting a swift and strategic nighttime assault. According to NAF spokesperson, Group Captain Kabiru Ali, the airstrikes obliterated key logistics and command structures, sparking large fires and eliminating several insurgents. This successful operation underscores NAF's dominance in aerial warfare as it continues precision strikes to dismantle terrorist networks and restore security in the region. And you're welcome back. South Sudan has launched airstrikes against rebel forces in Sierra County, Upper Nile State, as hostilities intensify. Information Minister Michael Luth confirmed the bombings, stating they targeted conflict zones between forces loyal to President Salva Kiir and Vice President Riek Machar. However, local officials claim civilians were among the casualties, with County Commissioner James Goldlock reporting at least 20 deaths, including women and children. The renewed violence threatens the fragile 2018 peace agreement between Kiir and Machar, who previously fought a 5-year civil war that claimed 400,000 lives. Tensions have escalated following an attack by 6,000 White Army fighters on a military base.
Security operations that you are not very much concerned about them.
Thank you.
Yes. Our SSP, our Air Force bombarded Nasser this morning. Classified vulnerable people who are in hostile areas is their concern. You are supposed to keep away from hostile areas. So when the bombardment happens, it happens.
Recently, U.S. President Donald Trump made headlines by cutting substantial funding to U.S. aide programs, particularly affecting African nations. Now, this move has sent shockwaves through communities reliant on critical support, especially those battling with HIV. South Africa finds itself at crossroads as a nation with one of the highest HIV rates in Africa. The implication of this decision are dire and urgent. News Central's Bongani Ziziba gives us a report on the ripple effect of these funding cuts. She met up with individuals who this announcement has changed their lives. Take a look.
Things are happening in South Africa. The leadership is...
This speech, a decision that rippled across the globe, particularly for those who relied heavily on U.S. aid. An announcement by President Donald Trump to cut U.S. aid funding to many African countries, South Africa included. Did he know that this move would transform lives, shatter hopes, and alter the very fabric of support for millions? I'm here at Esselen Clinic in Johannesburg, a place that once offered hope to those living with HIV. Meet Faith, like many others. She arrived at Esselen Clinic unaware of the storm that had just swept through her life and the lives of countless South Africans. As she approached the gate, disbelief washed over her, a harsh reminder that the vital services she depended on have been cut abruptly.
I come here to Esselen to look for my PrEP, to collect my PrEP and BP pills, but I find the clinic is closed already, and I don't have anything to do to go to another clinic to collect PrEP as usual. So now I am struggling. Even my friends, even many people, we are struggling to get our pills.
For Faith and many others, this clinic was more than just a medical facility. It was a lifeline. With South Africa facing one of the world's highest HIV rates, the closure of clinics means that access to critical treatment like antiretroviral medication essential for managing HIV has been stripped away, leaving patients in a limbo of uncertainty.
As we can see now, everything. We don't have money to buy pills because now they are going to sell it. This clinic was helping us to giving us PrEP, BP and another stuffs to survive. But now we are struggling.
All around, the reactions mirror Faith's disbelief, a community on the brink of despair. These individuals here, like Faith, have come not only in search of treatment, but in search of hope. Their dependence on the U.S. aid for free medication and support has left them vulnerable, raising questions about the future of their health and well-being.
In terms of ARVs procurement, as a country procuring 90%, only 10% that was complemented through the PEPFAR funding through Global Fund. But that on its own does not sit well with people who are now on treatment, especially those who had been taking their treatment quite religiously, were confirmed a virally load suppressed, and now petrified to say, how long will we still have ARVs?
In 2024, South Africa saw a decrease in HIV prevalence, but with more than 200,000 new infections and a significant portion of the population relying on antiretroviral treatment. A cut in aid, particularly from PEPFAR, could lead to a surge in new infections and deaths, especially among marginalized communities, potentially reversing progress made in the HIV response. So, what does this mean for the South African government? What actions must be taken to safeguard the health of its citizens and ensure access to necessary treatment continues? As aid shrinks, the responsibility shifts to local governments, pushing for solutions that many fear may not come fast enough.
All we need is an integration of resources that requires a political will, but at the same time is to ensure that government, through its coffers, the domestic resources, has to be channeled to close that particular gap. That's what needs to happen at this stage.
PEPFAR statistics show that at the end of 2024, it was providing life-saving antiretroviral treatment to nearly 21 million people across 55 countries, many of them in sub-Saharan Africa. The implications of these funding cuts stretch far and wide, challenging not only the health of South Africans, but threatening the resilience of a continent. The quest for solutions, innovation, policies, community support, and international partnership grows urgent in the wake of an evolving crisis. In Johannesburg, for News Central, I am Wangani Sisiba.
Israel has launched dozens of airstrikes across Gaza after ceasefire talks stalled, ending a fragile truce that began in January. At least 320 people have been killed, according to Hamas officials in the besieged enclave. For News Central, international correspondent Afia Hagen has the story.
Gaza's fragile ceasefire has been shattered, with Israel launching what it calls extensive strikes on Hamas targets. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has vowed to escalate military action, while Defense Minister Israel Katz declared, "Tonight we return to fighting in Gaza." Hamas has accused Israel of violating the nearly 2-month-long truce and putting captives in Gaza at risk. Israel in turn blames Hamas for refusing to release hostages and rejecting mediation offers. The human toll is mounting. Gaza's health ministry reports that over 320 people have been killed and hundreds more wounded. A doctor in Gaza City described the situation as catastrophic, saying most of the victims arriving at the hospital were children. Meanwhile, diplomatic tensions are rising. Reports suggest Israel consulted the Trump administration before launching the strikes. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told Fox News, Hamas, the Houthis, all those who seek to terrorize not just Israel, but also the United States of America, will see a price to pay. All hell will break loose. As the conflict reignites, the question is now whether international efforts can bring both sides back to the negotiating table, or if a new, deadlier phase of violence is about to unfold. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagan.
Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has strongly condemned Israel's renewed airstrikes on the Gaza Strip, expressing shock at their devastating impact on civilians. He has urged all parties to uphold the ceasefire, ensure the uninterrupted flow of humanitarian aid, and secure the unconditional release of all remaining hostages. Guterres' appeal comes amid worsening conditions in Gaza, with reports of widespread destruction and rising civilian casualties. He has reiterated his call for a sustained humanitarian ceasefire, stressing the urgent need to protect civilians and prevent further suffering.
Secretary General is shocked by the Israeli airstrikes in Gaza, in which a meaningful number of civilians have been killed. He strongly appeals for the ceasefire to be respected, for unimpeded humanitarian assistance to be reestablished, and for the remaining hostages to be released unconditionally.
Malaysia's forward Sadiq Umar is the latest player to arrive at Super Eagles camp in Kigali to bring the total number of players to 22 ahead of their qualifier against Rwanda. Only Al Hassan Yusuf is still expected to join the squad. Super Eagles coach Eric Chele is set to have his first training session with the full squad on Tuesday evening. Nigeria faced Rwanda this Friday, March 21st at the Amahoro National Stadium in Kigali. 4 days later, they will host Zimbabwe in Uyo on Tuesday, March 25th. The Super Eagles are currently fourth in Group C, 4 points behind leaders Rwanda. Ghana's Black Stars will have a full squad for their second-day training on Tuesday as they prepare for their 2026 World Cup qualifiers against Chad and Madagascar. The team opened camp on Monday with only 9 players taking part in a session that focused on field work, including shooting drills, passing exercises, and stretching. The rest of the squad have arrived at the team hotel and will join Tuesday evening's training session, which will be closed to the media and fans initially, but open to the public towards the end. Ghana will face Chad at the Accra Sports Stadium on Friday, March 21st, before traveling to Morocco for their Group 1 clash with Madagascar on Monday, March 24th, 2025. The Black Stars currently sit on 9 points from 4 matches, level with Comoros at the top of Group 1. Nigeria's table tennis star Quadri Aruna has been selected to represent Germany's Dmitry Otavchavrov in the inaugural WTT contender Chennai. The tournament marks India's first hosting of the series with $270,000 US prize pool at stake. Matches run March 25th to 30th at Chennai's Jawaharlal Nehru Indoor Stadium. Haruna joins a competitive field including Egypt's Omar Assar, Brazil's Hugo Galdarano, and Germany's, and Japan's world number 4, Tomokazu Harimoto. The 36-year-old reached the semi-finals in Doha earlier this year, but suffered a defeat to China's Wang Qike at last week's WTT champions in Chongqing. WTT's officials expressed excitement about Haruna's participation, calling the Chinese event a significant step in expanding table tennis globally while showcasing India's passionate fan base. Nigeria's Football Federation, NFF, under the leadership of Ibrahim Gusau, has achieved a significant milestone with the groundbreaking of the NFF FIFA Players Hostel and Training Facilities in Abuja. The ceremony, which took place on Tuesday, was officiated by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas. The state-of-the-art 68-room hostel, situated at the MKO Abiola National Stadium, features 62 single rooms, 4 suites and 2 executive suites. In addition to the hostel, 2 new training pitches, 1 synthetic and 1 natural grass, will be constructed, while the existing synthetic pitch will be reconstructed. The project also includes spectator terraces with a seating capacity of 1,838, as well as new dressing rooms for players and officials. Funded by FIFA through its FIFA Forward 3.0 program, the project is expected to be completed within 24 months. This initiative marks a major step towards enhancing Nigeria's football infrastructure, providing world-class facilities for players and officials. And that's all we can take at this hour. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Blast rocked Trans-Niger pipeline in Borno River State. Nigerian Air Force strikes have destroyed Boko Haram hideouts in Borno State. And we also told you that South Sudan has carried out airstrikes against rebels. As always, you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, but make sure to send us your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number now showing on your screen. And do follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV on every social media platform. Now you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422. You can also find us on GoTV channel 23. We're also on Star Times channel 274. Find us on Apple TV and stream us live on YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Judith at TV. Bye for now.